coming up on this episode of the Roundtable.
So you can go on the New York Times and enter your information and figure out how many people are in front of you in line for a vaccine.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So for me, I think it's 268 million people.
Oh my
but
gosh.
The hilarious thing about it just illustrates to folks how big California is. So they break it down by your state and your county. And it's so 268 million people are ahead of you. Nationally, 30 million people are ahead of you in the state of California. And 7 million people are ahead of you in Los Angeles County, which is fine. I don't need it. I don't need the vaccine. I'm not super worried about COVID. It makes perfect sense, but it just shows you how big this state is.
Right.
But I mean, I think your whiteness and your toxic masculinity disqualifies you.
I don't think they did not ask my race. They just asked my age,
any kind of relief from the virus,
my county, and my preconditions.
You should be last on the list.
You are first in line for your identity to be vaccinated.
Right. That's right. Welcome, everyone, once again to the Roundtable, the Claremont Institute's American Mind Publishers and Editors podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Williams, president of the Claremont Institute and publisher of the American Mind and the Claremont Review of Books, joined by Matt Peterson, founding editor of the American Mind, and our vice president of education, Spencer Clavin, associate editor of not one but two illustrious publications, the Claremont Review of Books and the American Mind, and James Pulis, executive editor of the American Mind. Well, today we wanted to start with a report from the field. Those of you who follow him on Twitter, you get much more than just bicep shots from, not much more, but a little more.
A lot of bicep shots, but you also get.
And you will have noticed that he was at lockdown protests recently. So Spencer, how'd all that go in LA?
Well, it was illuminating, and I came away feeling energized. This is a Twitter phenomenon for me. It began because I shared a video that I saw, which if you haven't watched this, go to my page or any of the other pages where it was shared. It's profoundly moving to just turn on the sound and listen to this woman. Her name is Angela Marsden. She runs a place called Pineapple Hill Saloon, and they shut her down, as they did in LA recently. They shut her down again on the basis of exactly zero evidence. And when challenged to furnish said evidence, said nothing, just said, well, but screw you, that's why. And so this woman's been shut down. She was already organizing a protest when she returned to her establishment and found a movie set that had been approved by Garcetti, by our mayor, had been approved to erect basically an identical structure for outdoor dining.
Right. For craft services.
For craft services, exactly. So anybody that's ever been on a movie set or knows about craft services knows that there's like constant food available. You get to eat all the time. And basically she says, I think she says something like, I'm losing everything. Everything I have is being taken away from me.
It's clear she'd spent a bunch of money on the outdoor arrangements as well. It looked quite nice.
Yeah, as so many people have. I mean, this is an underappreciated element of all this. And there have been other restaurateurs who have come out to say this very thing. You told me I could open up outdoors. You told me that was safe. And so I did everything I was supposed to. I had already closed down. I had lost thousands and thousands of dollars. And now I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on being able to make a living, take food home, employ, in some cases, hundreds of people. And so after this massive investiture, after this insane back and forth, after just pouring my energies and my talent and my treasure and my time into making this thing work for you, because you told me that this was for us. We were all in this together. You, Eric Garcetti, you, Gavin Newsom, said that this was what we all needed to do. And I, like a good citizen, buckled up and I just made it happen. And now it's being taken away from me again. And it doesn't make sense. I won't stand for it. And she came out, she was not belligerent. She was very upset, visibly upset. I found this just incredibly moving. And it inspired me to not only, share the video, but do something that I've been rolling over in my head for a long time, which is just find a way to actually do something about it. And luckily, this woman was already organizing a protest. So I went to this thing. Part of this for me is about finding the new conservative coalition. Part of this is about these are the people, anybody that is having the reaction that I just described is for me the future of the right, or a big part of it, at least. These people who have the right intuitions on the most basic questions that we're fighting about right now. What is man? Are we more than merely matter? Is safety the only thing? Can we predict everything on the basis of calculation, or do we need to make moral concerns back and forth about deaths of despair versus coronavirus safety? All of this stuff, right? The people that have the right intuitions on that right now are the people I want to be talking to, and I want to be out with those people. When I shared this video, which got a lot of play, I saw everybody's reaction to it. And I'm not particularly even interested in the people who are like, well, the movie set they were able to test every day. And, it just so happens that these rules always favor the people that also happen to donate to Garcetti in large numbers. And, that Garcetti's worried about retaining. So, I'm not even really interested in responding to that. To me, at this point, if you don't know the world is on fire in that regard, I have nothing to say to you, to paraphrase James Baldwin, I think. But I do want to respond in this forum to the people who were saying, well, who did this woman vote for? Because if she voted for the Democrats, then she brought this upon herself. And too bad, tough that we warned you and you didn't vote, and now we will not feel bad for you when you have everything taken away from you. Well, let me tell you, if that makes you feel like a big man commenting that on this woman's loss of everything, if that makes you feel better, if you got that out of your system, then great, buddy. Good for you. But that's exactly as far as it's going to get you. Because I have no idea how this woman voted. I don't know if she voted these people in or not. It's perfectly possible that she did. It's perfectly possible that she didn't. But let's imagine that she did, right? So now she's reaping the fruits of these terrible policies, of these terrible people, of these sweaty autocrats who care about nothing except their own constituencies and their own power and their own arrogance, right? There are people out there who voted these people in and are reaping the fruits of that right now. What does it get you to kick them when they're down? What? Nothing, right? It gets you only self-satisfaction and then more of the same. So instead of ranting on Twitter about that, go out and find these people and make common cause with them and explain to them why it is that we have something better to offer. And it's shocking to me how few conservatives are doing that, right? I mean, the reason that I went to this thing, which is it's the last thing that I would ever do. I'm not a protester. I'm a deep introvert. When the curfew was announced and we all had to stay indoors at 10 p.m., I was like, damn it. Now I have to go outdoors after 10 p.m. I never do that, but I have to,
I just to correct for the record, Spencer. I mean,
sure.
You do go to bed early and get up early.
Yeah.
But you're not an introvert. I mean, you do introverty activities. You read a lot.
Yeah.
Come on.
Fair enough. I guess, I don't know. I just I like my alone time. And I'm somebody who in the end...
You're a homebody for sure.
That's good, right? And in the end, I have actually remarkably few friends, and people that I would choose to spend time with outside of my life, my job, basically. So this was not something that I would do usually. But I went, and it's remarkable. There are people there who have, there's a restaurateurs protest outside of Sheila Kuhl's house. I wish it had been at Pineapple Hill.
Tell people who that is.
Oh, sorry. That's one of the county supervisors who voted for this ridiculous thing. And then immediately after went and dined, right? Went and ate
to
at a restaurant, right? So these people are just beyond parody at this point. They, the only reason to be surprised.
So you were outside her house.
Yeah, we were there. We were outside her house shouting at her and people grabbed the microphone and they told their stories of having to lay everybody off right before Christmas, right? Don't forget that people are having to buy, many of them are not eligible for unemployment. So it's that now they have to tell their kids that they're not not getting Christmas presents. I don't even know, And one guy who runs the Blue Dog Saloon. I want to get that right. The Blue Dog. I think it's Blue Dog. I think it's the Blue Dog Saloon. It's pretty great. I've been there actually. It's and this is the thing, people should know about this. Eat at Joe's, Blue Dog Saloon, Pineapple Hill, right? Mm-hmm. People should know these names and go and patronize them insofar as they can. But the Blue Dog one is in Sherman Oaks, I think. But just look up Blue Dog, and he's committed after a certain point. He said after I think December 20th, he's going to open back up. He's just going to and people are doing this everywhere. They're disregarding. The sheriff's departments are saying they're not going to.
The Blue Dog Beer Tavern.
Thank you. The Blue Dog Beer Tavern
in Sherman Oaks, correct?
Appreciate
the
it.
Blue Dog Beer Tavern.
Yeah, sounds like an awesome place. I'm going to go.
There you
now.
go.
Yeah.
It's you totally should. And he's running for Cool's job. He's gonna try to get that.
There we go.
Which is great. He said,
good.
Dave Rubin, who was also there, said your tagline should be, you took my job away from you and now I need your $300,000 paycheck. Because she gets $300,000 a year, this woman.
Oh yeah.
She gets so much money.
On the board of supervisors. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, all of this is simply by way of saying the time has come for action, and it is happening, and there is there are good starts being made, and people who have any degree of sway or influence, as all of us do, should be doing this. That's all I have to say.
I just want to say quick to what you're talking about. You made some reference to this. Wouldn't any Republican Party worthy of the name, or any opposition party, it doesn't need to be Republican. Hell, I'll take anything.
Right.
Any opposition to the regime in California, if you wanted to oppose it, would you not be going to every single one of these events, as you're saying, rousing people and saying, this should not happen in America, it should not happen in California. I am disgusted by what's happened to you, and I want to represent you, and we need to band together to fight this. I mean, when it comes to business, everything you described, also education, what's happening with the schools, this is not rocket science.
Right.
This is retail politics handing you opportunity on an effing platter.
Yeah, and radicalization and anger, right? I mean, these people are so upset, as they rightly should be, at the just wanton injustice and cruelty that's been enacted upon them by these just feckless morons. And the idea, right, it's exactly what you're saying. It's mystifying to me that there aren't 20 different candidates for these positions, that there aren't people out there with signs speaking as representatives of the Republican Party. But it's not too late, right? I mean, this is only just beginning, this second round of lockdowns. And the reason that I just wanted to give a report and talk about it is we've got to do it, just you actually have to do the thing.
I think it's going to break in California too, even in LA.
How so?
Well, I just think people are just going to be sick of it, and they're just not going to put up with it. So I think this kind of unrest will just snowball.
Yeah.
Well, and look, we're really just hitting now a lot of the expiration of sort of unemployment support and everything else. I mean, there's some crazy stats out there nationally. Something like, I think I mentioned this last week, but if you look at how many restaurants have shuttered, it looks to be 1 in 6 nationally in the last 8 months. And then, so I just, people will only put up with this for so long. Especially when, as some of the skeptics have pointed out on Twitter, Jordan Schachtel and Alex Berenson and others, if this were as deadly for normal folks as has been pitched, which we all know it's not, and our listeners know it's not, where are the bodies in the streets? Where is all the tragic stories for otherwise normal, healthy population? And it's just not there. I think the latest one was one of these. I think, was it the Philadelphia governor just tested positive? Yeah. And he had no symptoms. Yeah. But the only reason he knows he has it is because he gets tested every few days.
Right.
And it's, I think it was Alex Berenson on Twitter. It's such a deadly virus that the only way you find out about it is if you get tested. You have otherwise no symptoms. And look, this is not to downplay the plenty of tragedies, especially with the elderly. Of course. This is twice as deadly as the flu, and it's really more deadly than the flu if you're really old. So there are a lot of real deaths out there, but it's just, as we've been beating this drum for months. Right.
I mean, it is also, it's infectious. All these things, all these concessions having been made, and as it happens, I actually got a same day coronavirus test for other reasons the day before I went to this thing. And of course I'm negative, but nobody is more within the bonds of caution. Nobody's more reckless than I am.
Yeah,
so,
you are.
Yeah. So anyway,
you are.
I would also want to add that the golden days of the war on Christmas meme are probably behind us, but that centered strongly around language, around rhetoric. public language. And what we're seeing now is a much more corporeal and much more real war on Christmas unfolding, where the attitude of, well, no one asked you to be a Christian. Why should your claim to wanting your religious observance to be, intact and joyful this year preempt or dominate, matters of public health? The trees are in the windows and the lights are dangling from wherever people hang them. But the travel restrictions, the restrictions on gatherings, firing people who work in the service sector, or letting them go, shutting down restaurants before the holidays. All these things have a terrible smothering effect and a demoralization effect on, not even daily communicant Christians, right? But people who, at least we celebrate Christmas and we mean it and we sing the carols and, worship the baby Jesus and so forth. And all that is now under a terrible cloud. And, we'll see what becomes of the vaccine or vaccines, plural. But as it stands now, there's the really insidious indifference to not just this year's Christmas celebration, but to Christians as such. In the same way that people, nobody asked you to have kids. Why should your interests as a member of a family, much less a large family, deserve any kind of extra consideration over, the considerations of me, a bug dwelling or a pod dwelling bug man, right? Like this is where the public conversation, such as it is going. And I think the pandemic has only accelerated that, and that it will continue to accelerate. And, the precedents are being set is the thing. It'll go back to normal. It's not going to go back to normal one way or the other. And the precedents that are set in people's minds and in their assumptions and just the way they feel, those things stick and they last. And it's not just a mental health issue. It's going to have a profound impact on how Americans view religion and public life.
Yeah, it's going to keep driving our partisan divide too, I think. I saw a headline, I think you guys probably saw it too, yesterday or maybe even today. And we've seen this before, which is don't get all excited about a vaccine. You still need to wear masks post-vaccine. And I'm sorry. I mean, that may fly in South Korea, but it's just not going to fly in half of America. So it's going to continue to polarize us. I saw, it's just a Twitter headline, but it's from a reputable source, that the Newsom camp is genuinely concerned about the growing move to recall him. So that's a positive development.
Very good.
We should pour gasoline on that fire.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I signed that petition at the protest. Everybody should. I actually, one question that I have on the table, and maybe one of our listeners can resolve this, is there are multiple petitions and you need a certain number of signatures. So is there some way that we can consolidate those? I think the one that I signed needed something like 500,000. It was more than halfway there, but it needed something like 500,000 more people. Anyway. But
that shouldn't be a heavy lift. I mean, you could probably get two. And I mean, California's so big.
Oh, yeah.
So you can go on the New York Times and enter your information and figure out how many people are in front of you in line for a vaccine.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So for me, I think it's 268 million people.
Oh my
gosh. The hilarious thing about it just illustrates to folks how big California is. So they break it down by your state and your county. And it's so 268 million people are ahead of you. Nationally, 30 million people are ahead of you in the state of California, and 7 million people are ahead of you in Los Angeles County, which is fine. I don't need it. I don't need the vaccine. I'm not super worried about COVID. It makes perfect sense, but it just shows you how big this state is.
Right.
But I mean, I think your whiteness and your toxic masculinity disqualifies you.
I don't think they did not ask my race. They just asked my age.
Any kind of relief from the virus.
My county and my preconditions.
You should be last on the list.
You are first in line for your identity to be vaccinated.
Right. That's right.
I wanted to, the article that Ryan cites has this little line that says everything about the problem. So, like you said, as Newsom begins his third full year in office, the governor's team is increasingly concerned with a long shot conservative recall that could mushroom into a major threat in 2021. Wait for it. Quote, if it attracts significant financial support.
Yeah.
So what they know is they are worried because they know that the public is there.
Yeah.
But you would
just needs organization and money.
This is why I've given up on California. I mean, if it got significant financial support, you get the recall. And if you had significant financial support for an actual, new party that could be opposition, there's damage that could be done. Will it find that? Maybe in this case, there's some hope that someone gets pissed off enough. I mean, but Elon Musk is leaving. I mean, people are just bailing. They're not. That no one is sitting down and going like, okay. I mean, maybe as an FU on the way out, Musk should do that. He should.
Great.
He could give $100 million to it without even blinking.
Yeah, right.
Which is all it would take. I mean, shoot, you could do 50.
Oh yeah, if it just had
20 would be fine.
If you gave it 20 million, it would scare the bejesus out of them, and it very well could jumpstart something because you can get things signed, and this one actually has organic traction. But you have to have a financial backing to get anything done in the state so large.
Our younger listeners should remember, I mean, Gray Davis was recalled in large part because the vehicle registration tax doubled.
Yes.
Exactly. Let alone, half the restaurants in the state closing down.
I will reveal my age by saying I was in elementary school when that happened, and I gave a presentation about pro and con and why Gavin Newsom or why Gray Davis.
Well, people forget, this happened.
Oh, yeah.
California was a rare thing in the entire history of the United States. They just booted a lefty who was an idiot. But in this case, he's very unlikable. But who's going to be that financial support? I would, if you're listening out there, even if you don't care about the state, you don't think you can support a new party, if you have the money, at least support that and just give him the finger.
Yeah. It's, I genuinely, more and more as I contemplate this, I genuinely believe it's just people that need it like kick in the pants to not do the thing instead, because we're all so comfortable. Ryan and I talked about this on a Substack podcast the other day. Like we're all, even those of us here who are pretty, it's plain fired up about this, right? We're also comfortable. We are still working. We can work from home. We haven't been affected by this except in our anger.
We're lucky. I mean,
right,
we're lucky to be in the situation we're in. And think about that every day when I do go outside.
Right.
And look around. So I'm curious though, James has been quiet about California, but James has been here a while,
I've been here all too long.
James, like me, and unlike you two, is a native Californian.
That's right.
Almost right. Glad close enough, James.
Sure.
Better than Matter, Spencer.
No, we are.
Spencer's a cosmopolitan globalist, and Peterson's from the sticks.
I'm one of those.
So a good reason to support the Newsom recall is to signal that we do not want more Soros DAs taking over major or even minor California cities and turning them into the next Seattle.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's happening right before our eyes. It's going to get ugly. Everyone knows this. You have a Soros-backed guy in LA who's taking over, and he is basically going to stop enforcing the law when it comes to misdemeanors and quote-unquote nonviolent felonies. That covers a lot of ground, and you can go from a very nice neighborhood to a doo-doo neighborhood in about 5 seconds if word gets around that the law is not going to be enforced. So that's going to fuel the recall effort against Newsom. And it is a reason to recall Newsom because this is a guy who should say, I'm not going to let this happen in my state. Yep. And instead, he is going to French Laundry.
It will also spike his presidential ambitions too. So it's an added bonus.
That's good.
Among other things,
yes.
I mean,
that's a great point.
The San Franciscoization of Los Angeles County is proceeding apace. George Gascon, our new LA DA.
Just say Soros-backed LA DA.
LA
Someone
DA.
On Facebook, a good friend of mine, but he was like, "Oh, you got your tinfoil hat on, huh?" And then he's like, "Oh,
I Googled it.
Oh, he gave $2.25 million in LAD rares." Yes, yeah.
Yeah, among other things, criminal threats, drug possession, minor with alcohol, drinking in public, under the influence of a controlled substance, public intoxication, loitering, and prostitution will all not be enforced.
Yeah, here's another little...
They'll be misdemeanor. I mean, they'll basically turn the other way.
Right. I mean, here's another little parable about realignment and consolidation of our human resources, right? I will not dox myself by saying where I live, but I will say it's a fine neighborhood, right? It's not bad. It's not great. my laptop was stolen out of my apartment on the 12th floor while I was there. As I slept, somebody walked in, took my laptop out of my apartment. That's before all of this garbage, right? And so, like, as people have been saying, there's the potential for serious harm to be done here, a la New York pre-Giuliani, which, again, for those who don't remember, myself included, but my parents were there. Like, it was bad. Anyway, all of that having been said, right, who's protesting? Who's really pushing back right now? Beverly Hills. And, like, Beverly Hills is not full of people that I align with ideologically. It's not full of people who have the same background as me. But I'll sign up with the Karens. Sure. The Karens are going to get freaked out about this. Like,
I mean, there's some, I don't know if I should say it on this podcast, but there's some base people there of various ethnicities who are not down with the woke liberal program in Beverly Hills. And, Pasadena, I think, will stand strong. James was saying offline something about Glendale and other areas in LA that we know of where people will remain strong. And I think that's right. You have to realize that these crimes that he's not going to prosecute include criminal threats. And what you also notice is he said he's going to essentially relitigate or bring back to the surface every single police shooting that BLM has been upset about in the last however many years. So here's what's going to happen. I mean, he's going to work with BLM and Antifa. I don't care, what people tell you, like in some way, directly, indirectly, however he does it. He'll be working directly with the most radical left activists to relitigate this stuff, to plunge the city into chaos and violence. And if BLM makes criminal threats, they'll get off. They'll be fine. I mean, he's already said he's not going to prosecute that on the first offense. You just find someone to threaten someone criminally and they will get off, especially if it's, right for the right politics. So the brown shirts in the streets, the Weimar Republic, that's all coming to LA in a big way. Latino sheriff here is actually kind of a base Democratic union guy. They're going to come after him. I wouldn't be surprised if they find some kind of scandal to get rid of him. They hate him. BLM will destroy him if they can. He's got to watch his back. And what you can look for in the future is, so it's almost, I don't know. I see this and it sickens me because I love Southern California. It's kind of like some kind of like Batman movie, act where the city, Gotham plunges into darkness. That's what you're seeing now. And Southern California was a little better than the Bay before. It had a little bit more moderate, and by that I mean, law enforcement that was actually going to do its job, but no more. And the LA County supervisors, I think, are totally down to support this DA. So you will see the destruction of a city and a county, and anyone who opposes him will also be destroyed in the coming years.
Also on the table is a big defunding of the LAPD. Oh yeah, I don't know if it's passed yet, but it's. I mean, the last I looked at it, it would lead to something like 500 sworn officers being let go.
Yeah. Who by the way,
and so the question is, what replaces that system that they're going to dismantle?
Yeah,
and it's bad enough that the wave of disintegration is coming and that it's being manufactured and rammed through. But as always, the narrative is going to be, we created a problem that only we can fix. We're going to fix it with a social credit system. It's obvious that this is where this is going. It's obvious. And I mean, you can see the Biden organization is already tapping people from California, like Javier Becerra. I think Eric Garcetti is on hand to help organize the inauguration. They're going to Californicate the federal apparatus. And you can see the companies lining up, and you can see the need for the establishment to come up with the big fix to the big crisis that they identify because they manufactured it.
Yeah. Build back better, James. The Great Reset.
Build back bugger.
Well, it's
build back bugger.
Buggier, yeah. It's the classic. Well, it's the classic. They burn down your building.
Back better.
Yeah, they burn down your building, and then they say, "Behold your business," and they say, "Behold the failure of capitalism." Right. That's why we need communism, because we've been burning down your building. As a complete side note, one thing that should be legal is drinking outdoors. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But that's a different question.
I think in most situations, unless it becomes a problem.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of a small
you
town
just allow it and you crack down on public drunkenness.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah.
I heard of a small town in Texas that when they got a brewery or a little beer shop in town, they just the town changed the law right away, so everyone just walk around with a beer as it should be.
Yeah,
freedom.
Yeah,
the law used to implicitly favor good citizens, and we're now entering into a regime where the law implicitly favors bad citizens.
Absolutely. People don't realize, right? Just the intrusion, if you're defending your home, those kinds of laws. I mean, in California, you have to be extremely careful if someone attacks you, of when and how you defend yourself in your home.
So James has a hard stop in 8 minutes for a previous commitment. So I did want to, while he's still on, just to plug, James is going to interview and discuss Rod Dreher's new book, Live Not by Lies, at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Sponsored by the Fieldstead and Company, Howard Amundsen's one of Howard Amundsen's ventures out here in California. So you should all check that out. Just Google it. James, when is that again?
That is on the 17th. That is
17th of December.
December 17th. Doors at 6. Event at 6:15. Seating capacity is limited, and as an added bonus, all health and safety protocols will be followed.
And folks will be able to tune into it on a live stream, I think I've read.
Yeah, well, let me add that the 6:15 start time is for the live stream Pacific time. So if you are in fact inside of the state of Texas, hankering for a discussion of the pink police state and possibly even Texit, the event is 7:30 Central time. Although I guess it should be 7:15 Central Time. I'm just reading this off of the cue card.
Well, if it's 7:15 Central Time, it's not 6:15 Pacific.
Oh, no, you're right. Yeah. So there's a reason why I'm not a mathematician.
Look, I'm protesting this event regardless for its on-site
I make
practices.
things worse.
We thoroughly muddy the waters.
So, right.
Google it. You'll find it.
Let me start off. It starts at 6:15 Central Time.
Got it.
Not Pacific. So if you are in the People's Republic of California, be advised, 6:15 Central. It lasts for an hour and 15 minutes.
Got it. And you've known Rod for a long time, right, James?
Lo, these many years, yes. Yeah. Back when we were all just bloggers.
Right.
And look at how far we've come. We are now still bloggers.
Can you... We're still bloggers.
You sound like a boom con.
Pulis out.
James, I know you've got to go soon, but can you give us a quick sketch of that blogging history? People don't know this about you, but they should.
Well, let's see. Back in 2005, I moved from Los Angeles. I was a California refugee once before in my life. Showed up in DC with 2 Apple boxes full of clothing that I had shipped out to me, and began applying to graduate school
with a fresh law degree, right?
Yeah, well, the body was already beginning to sting. And as I was waiting for the grad school apps to come back in, I thought that spending 12 hours a day in document review in basement level of major white shoe law firms was bad for the soul. And although it helped me get back on my feet, it necessitated the beginning of a blog. So Postmodern Conservative was born, had a healthy young life, became a group blog in around 2007. Postmodern Conservative alumni still floating through America, some in technology, others in academia. Eventually, the blog was picked up by First Things, and then it moved briefly to National Review, and then it disappeared from planet Earth, leaving only the archives of a certain typepad URL that I may not share on this podcast.
It was good stuff. I used to read it.
It was good stuff. The Pink Police State was first sort of developed on that blog, and now it is discussed in Rod's book, and so we will be discussing it tonight. Some things never change, and so if you are around, or if you dare listen to my voice streaming as well as look at my face on video, please do join us.
Yeah, we look forward to it. I'm certainly going to tune in.
I know I will.
Yeah, James has to.
I'm protesting it.
Yeah, I want
People live in a theater in this day and age. It sounds very dangerous.
You can live stream the Matthew Peterson protest also. Of the event.
Really live not by lies. Really. Your lies that you're all going live in a theater together
and only using lines of dialogue from Bane in response.
Fair enough. Okay.
Tell me, Rod.
Is the government going to break our bodies first? Shouldn't we say something about Rod's book? I mean, it looks very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some critiques, but even the critiques were saying,
I know he did a lot of research in Eastern Europe for it.
He did. I don't believe he interviewed anyone, any sort of former victim of communism, who went so far as to say, let us tell you from experience that it's already too late. I don't think that has happened, but I will raise that. I will drop the black pill into the TPPF and ask what we should tell people who conclude that it is already too late.
Yeah, you should. I've had multiple people who immigrated here from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Conversations the last 9 months, and it's amazing how many of them just say, I never thought I would see something like this.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily, conservatives or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
The not the Soviet Union, the communism refugee, whom I know and will not name again for fear of doxing, as I will never tell anybody where my gym is. I will never tell where this person operates his cigar lounge, where you can still find a speakeasy backdoor entrance. And this is a person who fled communism and during the first set of riots stood with his son and their AK-47 at the front of the door. And when I was first there during the riots, there was another protest, and the paddy wagons at that point were driving past us to pick these guys up to stop them from obstructing traffic. And my friend, who will remain nameless, wrote on a side of a cardboard box, "We love the police," and he ran outside and waved it on the street. That will tell you something about how victims of communism reflect upon their experience in America.
Yeah, the speakeasy. I'm taking the baby to get a long overdue haircut tomorrow, and my local hairdresser.
Little man needs a haircut.
My local hairdresser. I'm gonna have to text. I'm gonna have to text her at the back door in the alley. Support your local businesses.
Do it. Yeah.
I want to write. James is leaving. Good to see you, James. I want to write that. I've been talking about it. I'll have to make good on it, but just a coronavirus or COVID coda. Sorry for that. We had 3 fellowships this summer in person. We had a 4th, also in person, shorter, for speechwriters. So we did Pulis, we did Lincoln, we did John Marshall, and we did speechwriters all this year. We had an alumni retreat with about 100 people at it in South Carolina last month. And we had two dinners, gala dinners. They were smaller than normal because of restrictions in LA County and Orange County, but we did them back to back to honor Larry Arnn with 100 people at each. And I've tracked this pretty closely, and we've been in touch. And we had one COVID case that was probably not contracted at the alumni retreat, and
there would have been more
and it didn't spread, and everyone's fine. Nobody died. We had plenty of older people who just decided that life was more important than cowering in their houses, so this can be done. Life can get back to normal, or some semblance of normality, even before a vaccine. Sadly, our local and state officials and even red states stand sort of stalwartly against such reasonableness. Well, we should talk a bit about this YouTube censorship. So it was announced, was it this morning, Jake? Yesterday, maybe? I saw it from Dave Rubin on Twitter.
When was it, Jake?
I think it was...
Jake, tell us do all our research.
late last night.
Give us facts, Jake.
Tell us information.
Fact check us. Show notes.
YouTube, which of course everyone should remember is Google/Alphabet, has declared that it will through algorithmic and other moderation take down any video that claims widespread election fraud. I think that's one of their catchphrases. There might be one other. The nice quote from Ace of Spades, who some of you may know,
a naughty blogger,
a naughty and pseudonymous blogger, who's quite salty when he wants to be. His quote today about this, and this, I have this courtesy of Chris Ross, our foundation relations manager. Thanks, Chris, who's actually next door to Jake's studio. He says, "I can't wait for the corporate-owned libertarians to explain to me that free speech is not a right. And if I don't like it, I should just make my own internet. I should obviously also make my own credit card payment services too, because those companies have begun banning anyone whose speech they don't like. So no one can earn money from speech unless it's the right kind of speech that the ruling class techno-fascist junta finds agreeable. Speech is a luxury only for the independently wealthy. Tell me, how many gigantic mega corporations do I need to found for myself before I'm allowed to speak freely?"
Love it.
Yeah. So this is the real inflection point, right?
Yeah.
And I think the response we've beaten this drum too, to repeat myself with the COVID stuff. This response simply cannot be from responsible lawmakers or opinion shapers that it's a free market and they can do what they want. It just has to be better than that. And and to say such a thing is not to give up the ghost of the free market. It's rather to appreciate and acknowledge the state of affairs and our new shifting digital public square for what it is, and the gatekeepers of it, and the fact that from what we can observe so far, the main gatekeepers of it are of a certain ideological and political bent, and thus it's not really a public square in the old sense. So we got to do something about that. The details, of course, are complicated, and there's no silver bullet, but to just wave the problem away is the height of irresponsibility, I think.
Yeah, I guess with the YouTube thing, it's no surprise that they're doing what they're doing. And I've I don't even know what color pill to call this, come out on the other side of all this. What
do go on.
We go like horseshoe theory maybe. So at some point I've gotten to this place where, start your own Google, which is asinine and hilarious. So start your own Google. Great. Yes, we'll do that. We'll find 2 exceptionally brilliant people, send them to Stanford, get them through, and then get them a DARPA grant. And they will, a government grant, and they will create Google. That'll be great. The free market at work. And of course, the government has always been very interested in Google from the beginning when it funded basically the origins of it. So everything Ryan said is absolutely true. As he also said, there's open-ended questions here. And I do think we are at the point where we are not going to resolve these problems simply with, if we even get this, right? What we've advocated is looking very seriously at antitrust laws so that you have a free market and not collusion between globalist kind of corporations who don't have the United States interest necessarily in mind. It's increasingly not where their money comes from. Hollywood is a good example. Like over half, Americans don't realize this, over half the money from movies comes from overseas. Are these American companies anymore at all? I don't know. So there's that problem with tech, but then there's also the collusion with government, and that's a classic, monopoly problem. Absolutely, the power of government, in my opinion, should be very carefully but leveraged against these corporations if we want a free market to exist. But that's not going to be enough. And increasingly, I just think, we need to be honest with each other, and that the hour grows late for the West. And perhaps it's the darkest before the dawn. Perhaps these people are over, they're just freaking out because they sense their power dripping away, and we will be able to overcome this. Or, they're about to just roll the entire country. I don't know. I don't care. What I do know now is that if we don't have new technology to counter the tech that exists, we will lose. So there's a sense in which, the new right is right. You're going to need government to go after these entities in a way and keep them accountable. That's true. I don't take it for granted. But you're not going to solve the technological problem that we see now without new tech that counters the legacy tech that wants to dominate and control human beings. And this is really, I mean, if McLuhan was right, we make the tools and then the tools make us. If that's true.
He stole it from Heidegger.
I think that might be the one line that's actually attributed to him anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is people have known this for a long time. We make tools and then tools make us. Well, then if you have tools that are warping us or taking us in the wrong direction, how do you counter that? You need other tools. You need a new tech movement that will redirect things that actually will, they always, as they've always said, empower the human person. And that's going to be radical. And the government's not going to like it either. I mean, even Bill Barr, who I like in many ways, is against, even the old school conservatives who are pro-Trump are many times against, in national security world, technology that allows people to actually have private chat or private transactions. Because the government can't crack, it can't get through blockchain, et cetera. I understand, that they're worried, but at the same time, like that's the kind of technology we're going to need if we're going to have a prayer of surviving this. And let me go further. It's not just the blockchain and the Bitcoin and the alternative currencies and all this, which, I know there's a kind of a cult of idiotic people online many times who support this stuff. But I think they're right that this is going to fundamentally change our political life, our cultural life, and become a real problem for government as we've known it. Because you're going to have alternative forms of currency that can't be traced, transactions that can't be messed with, and then communication that can't be messed with. That's going to revolutionize the modern world. And it's coming, and it's already here. But it's not only that. We're going to need actual hardware that's connected to different networks. We're going to need an entire new internet if you want to have a prayer of getting out from under this. And if you think about this, like any times we talk with kind of our groups of friends about this, you have an app or whatever it is, it can be banned. It can be taken off of Apple. It can be taken, they do this. And they just make sure you disappear off the internet as exists. But here's what you think. If 75 million people in the country and more around the world, and probably more than 75 million, are willing to get off of the grid onto a new internet, which they are, by the way, and not just Trump supporters, then you start selling whatever the hell you call it, the freedom phone. Yep. You sell new hardware itself that doesn't even have to be that complicated, that then allows people to speak freely and under and outside of the powers that be. So I just think, I think this is where we're going. I hope it's where we're going, but it's certainly what's going to be necessary.
Yeah, and we Matt, we've talked to a few friends, one of whom at least is in a position to do something real about it. It's a huge business opportunity too.
I too have a nuanced and informed.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we should.
It's not too big a universe to reveal that with giving away the advantage. I mean, every sound of mind, man or woman of means on the right should be trying to think this through and trying to make it a real going concern.
Yeah.
And make a lot of money off it in the process.
Yeah. And so let me just speak to that because it's against every instinct in my body to say what I'm about to say, given that I'm not libertarian and I don't like the consumerism in the shallow negative sense. But I do think there's a lot of truth to the fact right now that it's politically necessary for the survival of the United States of America that half of the country perceives themselves as a market and starts to buy products accordingly. Yes. And that is where the financial opportunity is. It's not just going to be grifters, though. We need, and this is the great thing about what Ryan's saying. Once half the country becomes a market, there will be enough money and status in red states. Hint, I'm thinking about moving to one where all of a sudden you can bring in all these people who are highly talented and they can get outside of finance and tech as they've known it and start creating products for half the country. So the money will be there. And in fact, if we're going to solve this problem, half the country is going to have those products and regard themselves as a market in order to combat kind of the wokeness that's tyrannizing us.
So like you both, I too have a nuanced and extremely informed opinion on this topic, which is as follows. I would like to dismantle Google brick by brick. I would like to personally hold in my hands the rainbow-colored bricks of their evil edifice, their alpha bricks, as it were, and crush them with my bare hands. That's how I feel. Anyway, we'll
see
really,
if YouTube lets that on this site.
Exactly. I'm only. By
the way, we all are hopefully we're planning on, we're gonna find out if YouTube bans us for our discussion here today.
Yeah, we should note that it'll only be good for us, really, if we get banned in any number of venues. So please bring it on, my friends. I'm only agreeing with you both, and especially about the urgency of planning out and executing an alternative, which, as Matt says, right? Of course, that's a ridiculous ask to make. But also, it's the position that we find ourselves in, right? It's the
reality,
right? Exactly. Like from a realpolitik or phronesis or any number or a prudentialist perspective, maybe we shouldn't have to, but we do. That's where we're at. But I also think that for our friends who maybe aren't yet on board with this project, who are making kind of libertarian arguments against interfering with private businesses. Look, man, like the government of America has a vested interest in ensuring that you can speak freely. It's in the fracking Constitution. Like it's right there. And so this is not just one among a number of other free market entities. This is not just a business. And even irrespective of antitrust laws, even outside of the usual curtailments that we put upon other kinds of business that can't aggregate to themselves too much power, these are businesses that traffic in one of the most fundamental elements of our polity. And so it's not insane, and it's not anti-American, and it's not regressive, and it's not even anti-liberalism in the small L sense of the word to say it is the job of the government to be invested in and to care about the structure of, look, when in the history of our
speech,
right, of political speech, when in the history of our republic, when in the history of our young republic has it been the case that the president of the United States could say, over the most recent available channels, over the channel that is, newest and accesses the most Americans, I would like to send out a message, and there exists a human being, a person on the earth who can say, no, you don't get to. I'm going to put that under a warning. You're going to have to click to get to that. That's never happened. It's not American. It's not okay. And it doesn't even represent anything like, the blessings of liberty or what have you. So all of that is ridiculous. It's bunk. It's garbage to say that we can't dismantle Google, and we should. But on the other hand, yes, we're going to need to build our own things. And this is a good example of something that is like not our job, right? Like we don't code. And so it is our job to be guiding this and to be investing in it and caring about it. But like somebody needs to come up with this technology, and it's not going to be me,
Oh, no, those people are out there and they understand it. And
exactly.
There's brilliant people out there doing it. But here's the thing. We all need to unify because a lot of those folks need to understand something about politics. And get connected to Red State America, and that that space in between kind of Red State America or half the country plus it's not just that, but all the people who are interested in this kind of technology, the technologists themselves, and then kind of a potential new media that takes things to the next level. All that's in play right now. All that's up for grabs right now. So if you're listening in the midst of the darkness and the craziness, you have to realize if you can get off your duff, this is an exciting time to be alive because the demand is finally there from half plus of the country for new tech, new media, and the kind of things we're talking about.
Yeah, I just wanted to drop one note about the event I plugged for James, which is I left out one of the partners, which is the American Conservative. TAC is partnering with TPPF.
Oh, okay.
And the sponsor is Howard Amundsen's Fieldstead and Company. But anyway, just for house cleaning, we should end with a discussion real quick of an interesting announcement, which is that
quick. I don't understand.
Yeah, none of us has ever.
Come on,
really internalized how that works.
I try. Which is that our own John Eastman is under his own recognizance, because we're not in the business of weighing into electoral or even post-electoral politics in this sort of large way. But John Eastman is the attorney of record representing Donald J. Trump, and they've just joined this Texas lawsuit alleging voter fraud in quite a few states. Really, it's not quite. I mean, it's fraud, but it's, as Matt has discussed, it's kind of legal fraud, right? Or Hayward has put it that way. Steve Hayward has put it that way too, which is to say, the claim of the lawsuit and the one that John is going to argue, we hope, in front of the actual Supreme Court, would be that basically a lot of these states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, and others, took out of the hands of their duly appointed and legitimate and vested bodies, that is their state legislature, the task of setting the standards for and the rules of their local elections, and instead did them through governor's offices or otherwise state executive agencies / voting bureaucracies. And then when they were challenged, the state courts, this is especially the case in Pennsylvania, upheld that violation of how these things ought to go. And so John, in that lawsuit's argument, which was filed by the AG in Texas, the argument is this: the Supreme Court ought to facilitate, I don't know the precise legal, the legal avenue towards this, but ought to facilitate the state legislatures to look into this and to assign their electors accordingly, or basically figure out how they ought to proceed to the electoral college with this whole thing. So very interesting. You all should follow John Eastman's work. We'll post it up on Twitter and elsewhere. And I would say, just as a practical matter, the prospect of the Supreme Court, even the current one, what it's certainly not going to do is overturn the election. You know, you're on Twitter enough, and you have these otherwise very patriotic folks who are worried about this outcome, and they say, you know, oh, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. They're going to have a new election. That kind of thing is not going to happen. It's just, there's no precedent for it. There's no way in hell. But what you could do at the very least is prompt a lot of these state legislatures to get to the bottom of this to the extent that they can in this short amount of time they have left. And this will be a live issue going forward, of course, even if what's likely to happen, which is that Biden ends up getting inaugurated in January, happens. And that's to say, we have to be vigilant and perspicacious and everything else about ensuring that we can actually continue to have free elections in this country rather than sham elections.
No,
I don't mean to suggest that 2020 was a sham election, but there's plenty of fishy stuff going on.
Just because Ryan gave you a dose of reality, for some of you in the audience, you need to know that was not a cuck speaking. That was realism that Twitter needs to handle, and this is really a problem. I also just want to say, none of this is important.
You mean YouTube?
Stuff I'm saying is not important here, but also by way of qualification, I love the fact that on this podcast we kind of drank our way into the deepest and uncomfortable, but also reality that we all face, and the fact that we didn't lead with the fact that Eastman, our colleague, is representing Donald J. Trump personally. We end with that because we know what's going down, and we want to make the medicine go down smoothly. But
yeah, I mean, this is now a unanimous, at least among those who are currently on this podcast, unanimous endorsement of
currently.
Some of us.
Hold on, just to interrupt.
Right.
So Jake is flashing didn't you just flash a 3-minute one at me?
It's 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. I feel like I'm going crazy here.
No, it's 5 3 1.
Calling out Jake. He's giving us
as usual.
minutes,
Jake was right, and I'm wrong.
He wants to cut us off from the people.
That's the worst.
I don't think the people
want
want to be cut off from us.
They don't.
The people should go subscribe to the Substack if they want more of you.
That's true.
Substack.
They get more than they'd ever want of any of us.
It's more than I want of us, for sure.
Stop trying to. So everyone trying to restrain us.
Everyone's just so. Spencer said a funny thing just now, which is more of any of us than I want. So everyone should know that Spencer on podcast recording days has been in the studio for 13 hours recording all of our weekly Substack stuff. And so by the time we get him, he's
Strung out is the word.
Yeah, a little strung out, but also very fluent with all the topics of the week.
To be perfectly honest with you, actually, and this will be my plug for the Substack, is I love podcast recording days. I see all my friends. When I said that I only have a few friends, like the people on this podcast are like 20% of my friends, and so I get to like hang out with you guys and say all the things. It's great. But yes, there's a lot of
we'll plug right. It'll be next week, right? That one of our tell me what you really thinks.
Features,
is Jake can edit it.
Jake will beep that out.
Yeah, just beep it. Yeah,
it's a secret.
YouTube doesn't ban us all.
Sorry,
Jake
Spencer.
So yeah, one of our Tell Me What You Really Thinks, which is our daily Substack podcast, which will eventually go behind a paywall. Right now, you can get for free. One of them features I think just one of the best possible guests. It's only 10 people except for this one, which has one of the best guests ever, and you will have to go to americanmind.substack to find that and any number of other things that we all write and say daily.
And we'll start doing a little more with the outside guests, right?
And I think
especially in our inner circle. The based old dudes. My former boss, Brian Kennedy, used to call some of them the Athenian farm boys because they're unlike they're all PhDs, but unlike your normal PhDs, they're actually real Americans.
This is good. This is like I'm trying to find. I'm assembling on Twitter
they
an
know
army.
How to shoot guns.
Yeah, exactly. I'm assembling a small army of weightlifting classics reading based Twitter followers, and there's currently a poll running if you want to vote on what the name for this should be.
I like the way you said a small army.
A small army.
Don't be alarmed. It's okay.
A minor phalanx.
Don't be upset, YouTube.
No. It's all okay. Fine. Yeah. My favorite name on the poll, which I also don't think should be the name, but my favorite name was the Sacred Band of Dweebs, which I thought was very, very funny.
That was my favorite too.
Thank you. Yeah. Did you vote for it?
No, I don't vote for your poll, Spencer.
Called Ryan. All right, well that's the end of that for me. I don't have anything else to say.
No. The Sacred Band of Dweebs is pretty good.
Well, wait a minute. I want to before Jake, this tyrant, Gavin Newsom, tyrant. Time.
He's holding a big TIME sign.
He puts up this sign that says time, and all I can think of is. I just think Pink Floyd, I just start hearing their song Time. Okay, so if I have time, I just want to say, when it comes to Eastman representing Trump and everything else, I feel the difficulty of this moment for conservative media, et cetera, but really just as a citizen of the United States of America. And here's the frustration. The frustration is that a lot of intellectual types, a lot of leaders have really let down President Trump and let down the movement that brought him to power. And I just want you to know this is something we care deeply about. And someone like John is taking time off from work to go defend the president personally. We have not, backed off. And it's been very difficult because to make the claim about the election is hard. And there are a lot of grifters out there. There are a lot of people selling you the idea that we can redo the election, everything's going to be fine, and there's a plan and all this. And look, there's kind of a plan, but it's very difficult to prove fraud. We know what happened. We see what happened, and things have been really messy on both sides. And frankly, the Republican side has not done the best job that it could have, that it should have in the last month. So, in the midst of that, we remain in the fight. It does not look good as far as the outcome of the election, but we haven't stopped fighting. And at the end of the day, as Ryan was saying, it was sort of they made it legal or in a gray area. They snuck through when it comes to the votes in the swing states. So we'll keep fighting, but there's probably not going to be some slam dunk moment where all of a sudden Donald Trump becomes president in the inauguration. And that doesn't mean that it wasn't unjust, but that's where we're at. And that's a difficult situation to be in. So we need to keep fighting, but also think long term about what's necessary so that next time this can't happen again. And that's where my focus is. My focus is, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And and just realize there's people out there thinking about that.
It's a great exercise in not eating your own. There are people like all of us who care about you and care about the movement, who are not trying to cuck out on you. They're like just trying to tell you the truth. And there's a lot of people out there who are getting pilloried right now.
I mean, we're trying to get canceled literally right now in this podcast.
Doing our best.
Wait, what do we have to say? There's widespread election fraud. Is that the word? That's the phrase?
I believe that's what YouTube
That is the exact phrase, Matt. Thank you. We're all censored now.
Okay, so let's say it again. YouTube, we apologize to our audience that there has been widespread election fraud throughout the 2020. Yeah. Anyway, is that enough?
Widespread. Well, as we said, I mean, we can qualify it, right? As we said, widespread, in scare quotes, legal election fraud. That's actually the biggest problem in this whole thing, right? It's not
right.
It's not,
they made it legal.
It's not Dominion and the Kraken. It's probably more mundane.
Yeah, the Kraken was 300 lawsuits by the Democratic Party to loosen up the law.
Sure. Yeah. So it's more mundane and more run of the mill. And look, I mean, frankly, the problem is the Republicans kind of across the states just sort of let it happen. The
blood boils.
Yeah. As one of our friends and fellowship alumni said, imagine being a good old Georgia boy and just thinking, I should just go home when the other side says we're going to keep counting. Well, they didn't say it, but when they say you got to go home, you say, all right, I'll see you all in the morning.
We'll keep counting throughout the night.
Same thing in Michigan and Pennsylvania, but we shall see. No, I mean the main thing, the main point is to be vigilant going forward and to make sure, as you said, Matt, that we get to the bottom of it to the extent that we can, and then try to fix this whole thing, because the line from we've said this in recent podcasts. I mean, the new line from the other side is widespread mail-in voting worked great. Why? It's lots of people out, and this virus thing will, in some form or another, whether it's the COVID or something else, it will be known and spread that why are we all gathering publicly to vote? It's just a vector for infection. So Jake is now flashing time for this third time, and Matt's taking a picture of it. So you'll probably see that on Twitter shortly.
If I get approval, I may post it.
Anyway, we're rambling at this point. We should wrap up. Thank you all for listening to the Roundtable. If you want to support our work, or this podcast or any of our other work, scholarship, policy work, etc., go to claremont.org/donate. If you want to learn more, visit our websites at americanmind.org, claremont.org, and claremontreviewbooks.com. Don't forget to rate us well, review, share, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks to the production and engineering crew, Jake Gannon and Annalisa Lee. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next week.
And you're out.
Totally out. That was a pretty good picture.
You'll have to show me later. I'll tell you if you can post it.
We can use it as the headline for the podcast episode itself.
And it says time.
It's just the title. Time.
It's like time, Ryan, Annalisa like mischievously grinning, and like Jake like being a tyrant, looking at his computer or whatever.
I think we can beat the algorithms, can't we? Wide, hello, spread. Election fraud. Multi state election fraud.
We just have to say that everything we talk about is in Minecraft.
Yeah.
There you go. In Minecraft.
That's how they hide all the good stuff.
Let me do mic checks real fast so we can have James here for 40 minutes of the 60.
Uh-oh. Don't tell us what to do, Jake. 1, 2, 3. Test.
Don't tell me what to do, does it?
We have to add some of that. We have to add some of this Jake banter into that.
All right. And Matt?
I'm sorry about the show notes.
I put time into those damn.
You did.
It sounds like a battered wife.
No, it looks like you did.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Kevin Nealon.
It won't happen again.
Spencer?
Remember that?
Yeah.
I hear the show notes in between each episode of Tell Me What You Really Think anyway. So I regret nothing. That's all I have to say. Is that good? Do you need that? Yeah.
Until I delete your voice in every podcast episode until you read my show notes.
I also like don't tell me what to do. Person whom I have hired to tell me what to do. Person whose job description is tell me what to do. My pod will be My pod will have an office.
This corner is my office. The corner that doesn't have the bugs.
Okay, that's a technical term.
YouTube just banned our podcast.
They can hear us now.
Okay, shut up. We're conspiring to have James on this podcast for 3 minutes.